joined us. Slacker. We can go ahead and get started. And Kaditra, I forgot I had to come to the office today. I don't have my personal laptop. I think we have everybody who is supposed to be here.
Yes, Michelle was a question mark, and Nicholas said he was unable to attend. So
right. And I see Donna's also joined us. Sorry, yeah. I apologize. Well, with Mr. Pond and Miss Rasco here, and being 12:01 p.m. Eastern time, I'm calling this meeting to order. Deidre, could you do us a quick roll call, please, for the board?
I sure can. Scott Iden.
Yeah, here.
Barbara Marchioni.
Here.
Diane Holt.
Here.
Dixie Newsom.
Here.
Paula Rigsby.
Here.
Cheryl Hickman.
Here.
Non-board members that, board members that are not present are Michelle Durner and Nicholas Potter. All right.
Very good, thank you. All right, before we jump into the approval of the agenda, want to go ahead and add in between section 5 and section 6, we are going to have a closed session for attorney-client privilege conversation. Don't know how long that will run, but we are looking to get that squeezed in amongst all our other items to review today. I think, oh, and one other honorable mention in section 6, letter E, the parent and student handbook. If you are interested in seeing a red line version, I believe Kaditra is going to pull this up. If not, or if you want to look at it on your own, it is available in the board portal, the red line version. So that's the only other change that I had. Steve or Kaditra, I don't recall, or I don't have anything else noted for any other.
Scott, I would like to discuss the staff, teachers, luncheon.
Appreciation, yeah, the end of, and I beg your pardon, Barbara, you had emailed on that, and I swear I made, well, wherever I made the note, it's not on my agenda. So let's add item 5, what are we down to?
H.
5H for the end of year staff luncheon appreciation discussion. Thank you, Barbara. My brain is old. My brain is old and it forgets things that are not written down. Okay, and I don't recall, did we, and sorry board, sorry Barbara for forgetting that.
That's okay.
Did anybody else have anything? Because, and forgive me, because at the office I don't have my personal laptop, and most of that correspondence is on my other machine. Did we have any other changes, additions, or otherwise strikings for the agenda, for today's agenda, June 7?
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case then, so we've added closed session. There's a red line version of the student handbook available on the portal. And Kaditra may indeed be sharing that with us when we get to that section. And then 5H is added for luncheon discussion. If that's all the changes, then let's make a motion for approval of the agenda as amended or updated.
This is Dixie. I move that we accept the agenda as amended, updated, whichever.
Thanks, Dixie. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Barbara. Roll call.
Yes. Paula? Paula, you're on mute.
Yes.
All right. Cheryl?
Yes.
Dixie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Roll call complete.
All right, with that, we have approval for the agenda for today, and we'll jump right into it and begin in section 4 with our management reports. And our man of the hour, Mr. Pond.
Thank you very much, everybody. Happy June to you. We are in our last week of school. We have school Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we are finished. Finishing up end of grade testing today. We continue to offer any open seats that come up. We are excited to not have as many as we predicted, with students moving on to other places. Our 8th graders are moving on to high school, and we'll have kindergartners moving in. As of last week, when I sent this to you, we had 754 scholars enrolled, over 1,000 still on this year's wait list, which we are not filling from anymore. As of last week, we had 2,700 applications for next school year, which tops even our opening year. And we still have over 1,800 on next year's wait list. So that was really great to see that data. We had our ESSER meetings in May, on May 10th, and I shared that with you as well and linked that presentation to you in the principal's report, as well as the online meeting. So if you have any questions when we get to that part later, certainly happy to answer them. We are still above the goal expectation for attendance. Within the second year of COVID, we're really happy that we were able to still exceed the expectation of 93% or more, especially with students who have been out, they come back in, but students who should be attending school are attending school. We, as I mentioned, had end of grade testing. When I sent this to you last week, it was just beginning. It completed. Today is our last day of makeup testing, and we'll have all final grades in to be able to share with you at the next meeting, but they are looking really strong. Based on the tutoring that we did, we started in March. We did tutoring 2 days a week for students who were struggling after they completed their check-in, which is the mid-year assessments that we have 3 times during the year. We continue to contact anybody with academic concerns or attendance concerns. We've been doing that even this month and are holding our recommended retention meetings tomorrow. So we actually have those all day tomorrow. There are 8 children school-wide that we are recommending retention for. 7 of them are for academics, and 1 is for academics as a root of their lack of attendance at school. We are starting up our summer school, our summer learning program next week. So next Tuesday, we'll start for our 3rd graders who are in Read to Achieve camp, and they will retest on Friday, June 30th. And then the students who are did not pass their EOGs, but were within a certain range that we feel they can make that adequate progress to do that, are being invited to summer school, summer learning, for 3.5 hours a day, starting next Wednesday, the 15th. We currently have all positions filled at peak, which seems to be a rarity among our NHA and regional schoolmates, but we've been able to fill all positions, and we are looking to fill 2 positions for next year. We've been actively interviewing and hiring, and we do have a couple of extra teacher and residence positions that will be extra positions we'll hire to bring candidates in for should any other positions open up over the summer. But we're already interviewing folks for those 2 open positions that were created not by any negative reasons. It's by faculty members moving away. But everybody else has been filled, and we end school this Friday. So thanks for all of your support. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Steve, what grade levels are the retentions?
We have 3 for kindergarten, 1 for first, 3 for second, and 1 in 6th. So primarily, they are the primary years where students are struggling with their literacy and or their numeracy, and to send them on would be a real disservice. And all the parents have been on board with this as well. There's only one parent that is not yet on board fully, but they are starting to see and understand their child's difficulties and struggles with. They're still at a point where they're learning number recognition and letter recognition. So certainly not able to read yet and to move on. And a lot of this has come out of the students as they were learning and how they were learning during the times during the pandemic where everybody was at home. We can't say for sure that all of these students actively participated in the online live instruction that we offered each school day, nor did they do all the work that they were supposed to do. And we certainly also don't know how much commitment was given to them from their parents or guardians to continue to build up those phonemic awareness and numeracy skills. So the majority of them are kindergarten, first and second grade, which are the 3 grades that have been impacted most, because that's where they were in 2019-20. So they were either 3rd graders, preschool, 4th grade, 3-year-olds, preschool 4-year-olds or kindergartners, and they're the ones who are being retained. And our teachers have done an amazing job to only have a few of those students even on the retention list. They've done a phenomenal job getting them back on track this year.
That's fantastic, Steve. I don't know how many of you have read the article on the News and Observer the 29th that addresses how far the students in North Carolina are behind. So I want to say you've done a great
Not
job.
here. Thank you.
Right. You've done a fantastic job in what you've done for the students.
Well, thank you. And last year and this year, last year, as we've shared previously, we still had to take end of grade testing. We still had numeracy assessments and literacy, but even with a full year out of school for some of our students, we count as a district, as a charter school. So out of the 115 districts and the 200 charter schools. So out of the 115 districts and the 200 plus charter schools, we were ranked 6th based on our academic performance across the state.
That's great.
So it's just the drive of our teachers and the will of our students to challenge themselves and to apply themselves.
High expectations, and they met it.
Absolutely. There are no other kind.
That's right.
There's a guy that used to work for me years ago, and he was always just so exceedingly happy every day, no matter what was going on with work. And I asked him, I said, what's your secret to always being so content and so happy and just always with a smile on your face? And he says, I get up every morning and I set my daily expectations right down here a couple inches off the floor.
Yeah.
And that way, no matter what happens, whatever happens during the day, it's a great day. It's just funny because, Steve, I'm with you. I've nothing but high expectations, and certainly based off your great principals report, I don't think we have any changes going on here with what the board expects.
And our leadership team, we partner so well together, and the deans have done an amazing job driving through coaching and through mentoring the instruction that goes on in each of their wings. And, we kind of talk about it, we don't want to meet the bar because the bar statewide is the minimum expectation is a level 3, which is really between 45 and 50%. So we don't meet the bar, we want to be the bar. And so we want to just keep elevating our game every year. And if the pandemic throws challenges at us, we still want to be the bar.
Great leadership.
Yep, agree. So thank you, board, for the comments. Before we move out of the principal report in the retention area, any other questions, board? Anybody have anything on their minds they'd like to ask Steve? Doesn't sound like it. Let's go ahead and move on to the 22-23 ESSER plan presentation.
Yeah, thank you. And as I shared the link and the video, if the video was our presentation both for parents and for staff. So hopefully you got the chance to see it if you wanted to. ESSER, as you may recall, is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. And those are 3 different funds. ESSER 1, 2, and 3 is how they're labeled. The first came from the CARES Act. The second came from the coronavirus response, and I'm trying to remember the rest of it, but it was the CRRSA Act, and that was the ESSER 2 funding allotment. And then that American Rescue Plan that came out extra was the ESSER 3 funding. Our funding was actually given it to us all as one allotment with the purpose of helping us to respond to the impact of COVID within our school. And so what we have done is we allocated all that money, and we met last year all about how we were allocating funding, and a good bit of it was for summer school, summer learning teachers, both this year, next year, and in 2024. Because the COVID pandemic started in 2019-20, continued last year in 2021, and has continued again through this year, we wanted to allot our teachers this year, summer of 23 and summer of 24, for that impactful summer learning. Because the impact of these 3 years of the struggle are going to be seen in our eyes this year and for the next 2 years. So we don't want to come back and say, yay, we're all over because we're back. We know there's going to be an impact because our children are still 2 or 3 years behind when they come to us. We want to do what we can to make that up. And then we want to invite those students who have struggled to come to summer learning and to have that opportunity to retake their assessment. So the high majority has been for making sure we have support for students who are struggling, working to help provide for our teachers to help retain high quality teachers that we have. I mentioned before that we're the only school that I know of in the area that is fully staffed top to bottom. And it's because we were able to use some of those retention funds and show the appreciation for our staff being here this year. So we gave an allotment of retention funds for those who have been with us this year. We also have an allotment set up for those who come back this year and are here next year. So we want to make sure that they get that appreciation. A bit of that funds, about $35,000, was for Chromebooks, making sure we ensure that we have one-to-one devices percentage. Every student has their Chromebook, their carrying case, protective case for it, and their charger cords, everything they need to be successful at home to support what we're doing here at school. And while they're here at school, we've also allotted a bit of our ESSER funding for tutoring. As I mentioned before, we've done 2 days of tutoring. We offered it to every child who was not at grade level, either in their math or their English language arts, or in science, because that's a tested area in 5th and 8th grade. And so we had a high number of students, I would guess over 100 regularly here every Wednesday and Thursday that we did tutoring starting before spring break. And then we also did more, what we called academic boot camp. The month of May, teachers had a professional development afternoon, a data day as we call it, on May 6th, Friday, May 6th. We had a couple hours that afternoon where we designated the time for our teachers to plan their differentiated and tiered component of their instruction to best support students that needed that academic enrichment. So when they're here for the 3 weeks before we started end of grade testing, they were getting the foundation building support that they needed, where other students were getting the proficiency restructuring and the affirming of their proficiency. And the students who were already proficient were still getting that challenge and that high level enrichment of that tiered and differentiated model that we've become known for. And we've still scheduled some of the additional funds for next year to replace Chromebooks and for the year after. So the highest level of that is to support learning. Our overall priorities have been for the summer learning program and tutoring within the year. Second level was to retain our teachers through some ESSER funded bonuses, and also to use that to attract teachers, because those who are hired next year in the spring, we're going to be able to give them a sort of retention bonus for sticking with us for the year. We still have prioritized making sure that even though we're mask optional, every classroom still has sanitizer. We still have the giant gallons of sanitizer at every door where people come in and out of. When students leave a classroom or return to a classroom, they are still sanitizing as well. And then we do have some digital curriculum. We use Lexia for English language arts reinforcement, and Dreambox was a program for mathematics. And that's what we're actually offering as summer learning to all of our students, not just the ones who are below grade level who are offered that summer learning, but we are offering Lexia and Dreambox practice time to all of our students. And so in each of the last 3 years, we've done a back to school celebration and raffle where we have really neat things like tablets so our students can download books and read them. We always give away 2 of those. We give away things like earphones because they have to have the earphones for use in school. So we pick out some of the really cool looking ones and we do that raffle. We give away school jackets and t-shirts, all of those things to help promote their summer learning engagement. The article Dixie talked about is how dramatic the learning loss has been since the pandemic began. But it also talked, as Dixie knows, about summer learning loss, and students who don't do things in the summer, they can come back a third, half, or even a full year behind because their brain has not connected yet. Those cognitive hooks of the goals and the knowledge they have learned this year and prove they learned, if they don't do anything for 2.5 months, they're going to come back and have backslid to where they were maybe at the midpoint of this year, but they're starting the whole next year. So we're also bringing in academic materials like those digital curricular resources. And we also have some of the academic programs like AimsWeb, which is used by our interventionists during the school year. So for next year, those are the same things that we're really focusing on. We want to maintain the technology. We want to make sure we still have things like classroom sanitizer at every door, masks available for everybody, teachers or students who want to wear them. And we've already planned out to fund summer tutoring and school year tutoring and summer learning programs next year, as well as the retention strategy. So that's an overview of our ESSER that I spoke to about in a 30-minute presentation. So I wanted to abbreviate it for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Steve. Team,
Pleasure.
questions?
Sounds like he has everything covered.
Well, thank you again. We're trying to not meet the bar. We want to be the bar. So we talk about that a lot with our leadership team and our teachers.
So Steve, just to restate, and again, forgive me, I don't have my personal laptop with me. One of those emails that you've sent recently had the link, right? For the
Yes, it's actually on the
able to-
principal's report as well, in addition to the separate.
That's where I saw that. Okay. Just
So if you want to
just
watch me for 30 minutes on a Google Meet, more than welcome to check out the video, or you can just see the presentation, which is quite a bit of what I quickly went through to abbreviate as much as possible for you.
I appreciate the consolidating that for our time purposes today. Just want to restate that so the board's aware that if you have not had the opportunity to take a look at, excuse me, either of those resources, that you should have those resources at your fingertips by way of a link. So,
And there's also the survey. If you weren't able to complete the survey, that is independent from the presentation. But if you'd like to still submit the survey, I know NHA is still collecting them. They're sourcing all the data and then delineating it by school. So I was already able to get before our meeting a good bit of the survey data. So we were able to determine our priorities based on the input of anybody who had already completed it.
well, and hopefully it was 100% participation.
As always,
From
it
the
was
board.
as much as we could hoped for, but not as much as we wanted.
Oh. All righty. Well, team, before we move on, any final questions on the ESSER piece? Not hearing any. Let's go ahead and move on to our spring employee engagement survey summary.
And that's a really neat tool called Glint that we participate in every year. It's a third party. Those of you who are teachers, you're very familiar, I'm sure, with the North Teacher Working Conditions Survey. This is NHA's version of that, but it's conducted by a third party. So the Department of Public Instruction allows us to replace Teacher Working Condition Survey with this one. So bringing your attention, there's a lot more independent things that everybody responds to and a lot more comments. But looking at it, we were right on track with where we were a year ago. So coming in and looking at the benchmark for 2022, you can see our spring survey, 72 is the employee engagement or satisfaction rating. We're an 82, and that's people who check the highest block. For belonging, that was a new one. There was no benchmark for it. So an 86 over the company average of 79. The growth, meaning we try to grow our folks. We have several folks now, 5 or 6 who are now National Heritage Academy's content leaders, senior content leaders who work to provide statewide professional development, new teacher summit training. We continue to do that. We also have 2 folks that are going into the Dean Development Program from Peak. So 2 of a cohort from all 100 schools are from here. And then we also have Dean Gorman moving into the Principal Prep Development Program. So she's one of about 18 to 20 nationwide that are in that. So 86 versus the benchmark score of all schools that participate of 68 versus all the NHA schools of 75. Safety has always been a high measure here at Peak, especially after the tragedies we hear about the elementary school in Texas, as well as all the previous nightmares that schools have had to endure. But safety has always been a strong measurement. It's an 83 education benchmark as well as NHA benchmark. So the education benchmark is all schools and entities that the corporation works with. The company means NHA. Learning, that we're focused on student learning, to still have a 90 going through the pandemic is incredible. And the company benchmark is a 78. And then culture, company-wide, it's 76. Schools nationwide benchmark they work with is 65, and we're in 89. You can see from the fall to the spring, there are a couple areas that dipped a bit. But what I would ask you to draw your attention to is actually the spring to spring benchmark, because that's actually a year apart. The engagement survey is given in the fall when people return. They've had that wonderful, restful summer and that break, and everybody's pumped up and they're enthusiastic. So apple and an orange comparison. So we always look at this time last year versus this time this year. So overall, belonging and growth were actually new measures, but to be well above the benchmark nationally in growth and well above the benchmark as well, 7 points above the benchmark for belonging. We're really excited about that. Safety was spot on, as was learning. So even in the first mega year of the pandemic, 2020-21, and the year that we're coming out of the pandemic while still experiencing it in our personal lives, while having a full, as close to normal school year as we can with all the COVID protocols in place, to have a 90 is great. And then culture going up a point from the end of last year to the end of this year. We're really excited about that. The number one thing, and leadership, sorry, that was at the bottom of my screen. 68 is a national measure, 88% is what we have as a rating. NHA's leadership teams overall are a 79. We are an 88. So continuing to look at how we compare nationwide to NHA and all the other schools versus how we compared, as we talked about this in the fall, you may remember we compared fall to fall. Now we want to compare spring to spring as we talk about it with our staff at our most recent faculty meeting. The number one thing that teachers express, even though we prioritized a great deal of our ESSER funding, teachers in general, both at NHA schools, nationally among the GLINT program, schools that implement the GLINT program and us, the number one area of concern, for lack of a better word, or comments, has always been and will continue to be compensation. So we continue, that's why we focus so much of our ESSER funding support to elevate compensation, either through raises or bonuses, to be able to help our teachers to be competitively compensated. But all of our teachers, even the ones who, mostly the ones who have been here more than 5 years, are not still at the measure that they are in the districts, but our hope and feeling is that the other things like the culture and the support and the leadership are what's keeping them here. NHA now pays at 110% of the band, the starting salary band of the counties in which schools are located. But once teachers move up in that band, there does seem to be some discrepancy as we look. So we want to continue to love on our teachers and support our teachers. And we are keeping a lot of teachers who are above that entry level band with the county. But what we see as NHA schools, not so much here, but at other schools, is teachers tend to leave after they get all the great training and the development and the experience. 4 or 5 years in, they'll say, okay, I'll go to a county, because they now have the higher bands that they continue to pay. We also counter that by paying raises, where the average raise this year was 4% that we were able to give people. And so we were able to do that and being able to compensate them every year. Whereas in the county, you're in a salary band block for several years. That's a great countermeasure to balance. We might not be making this much, but each year we can get 2 or 3 or 4%. And I've been having the year-end meetings with the folks who are my direct reports, and they are over the moon being able to get a raise each year, where if they've come from the county, they didn't get a raise really until either the 3-year block and they moved to the next one, or the 5-year band and they moved to the next one. So we're doing a lot to counterbalance that, but it's still our employees measure. And it's something that's not really in our school-based control. It's more of a national focus. But we're really happy with our GLINT, looking at year end to year end through the year that we've been through. You know, some of the things we talk about, hey, remember a year or two when this person was here or this happened? And then one of us will say, no, that was 6 months ago. That was November this year. And so we really try to work through. It's been a very long year, an arduous, trying year, and incredibly proud of our team to push the way they have and to get the performance out of themselves to contribute that, which in then turn leads to the performance from our students that we're seeing in the raw data from EOGs. We can't wait to share it with you when we get the official formal data.
Steve, I have a question.
Yes,
Did
ma'am.
you say 4% raise, not a one-time bonus or something?
4% raises.
But
Yes, ma'am.
4% raise, okay?
We were
That's
able to work with
fantastic.
NHA, and they see the compensation concerns on their national GLINT. So that's why mid-year they gave everybody a bump to 110% of the starting band, which I think is 0 to 4 years in Wake County now. So whatever that was, our employees all make at least 110% of that. We also, when I've been going around, I've been working with Teachers of Tomorrow, which is a alternative certification program. And I've been holding seminars with them. We call it TOT Talks because it's TOT, Teachers of Tomorrow. And I've shared actually the benefits with us outweigh the benefits with the state health plan, because you actually get more coverage for less money if you're trying to insure your family and all that. So we've done a lot with counterbalancing perception of charter school or perception of NHA schools, and NHA has been great in working with me. So I've been able to have those conversations and then share videos of it with over 400 alternatively certified teacher candidates across the state, because we have schools across the state. So it's been great, but yeah, 4% raises, and it's been super.
Hey, you guys, and Steve, thank you so much. I know we still have quite a bit of an agenda to get
Yep,
through.
I'll be quiet.
30 minutes in, so I just want everybody to be conscious of the time.
Satine,
Okay.
do we have any additional follow-up questions on the Glint survey information? Doesn't sound like it. Steve, I have two very quick questions. Number of responses, 45 of 51. The
Yes, sir.
51, does this survey go out to all peak staff or
It is
teachers?
all peak staff who are employed by peak, not any of the third-party contractors. So we have a psychologist, we have a speech language pathologist, we have folks who are not, because usually when we say, like Barbara and I will talk about the luncheon, we say 60, because I always want to include our custodians, and I always want to include the folks who work for preferred meals at our lunchroom. So that's where we get that number of 60. But we have 28 classroom teachers and 4 specialists and 4 special educators and 8 paraprofessionals and 3 interventionists. And so that adds up to 51. It's only the people that are not actually employed by peak and NHA.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir. Well, team, if we don't have any other questions on the employee engagement survey, Khaditra, let's move on to the board fund report.
All right, so the board fund report is found on page 7 of your packet, or 9 of your PDF, and this is as of May 9th, 2022, excuse me. So you guys have an available balance of $39,086.66. This will be rolled over into your next academic year, in addition to the $35,000 that you get annually as well. So you'll see payment number 178 in the amount of $25,1518 to National Heritage Academies. Any checks that are payable to National Heritage Academies are for stipends. So that was a stipend. It's not as detailed as your prior report. And I have reached out to finance on your request to have a more detailed report. And the response I received was, this is what we have currently. Hopefully in the upcoming academic year, a more detailed report could be generated, but that has not been created as of yet. So I'll keep you updated on the progress. Any questions?
I have none. Board?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Khaditra. All right, let's go ahead and move into our discussion items. As you said, we have about an hour's time allotment left and quite a few things to go through. Our first item, 5A, is our normal identifying potential board members. I was going to provide a summary. I guess I first things first. Board, does anyone have anybody in mind or acknowledge anyone that they feel like may be a good potential board member? Okay, that's kind of what I expected. And I think we can probably go ahead and move on past this item. We have identified Cheryl with C. And I thought she was going to be in attendance today. But we're going to have some further conversations on that in closed session. And we are at, excuse me, we have 8 board members / directors. And I think Khaditra, what did you say yesterday? Our bylaws call for a maximum of a number of 9.
Yeah,
but we're going to
have
have some more.
tonight.
Yeah, we're going to have some more conversation in closed session. But before we move off of item 5A, any comments or anything from the board that you guys want to share? Okay, not hearing any. Let's move on to item 5B, and this would be the review of the board self-evaluation and evaluation of NHA.
All right, so I will take it from here. I will share my screen. I sent you
Perfect.
guys the results of the evaluation on April the 6th. We just haven't had the opportunity over the past few meetings to just review the information. So I'll make this as quick as possible. And all right, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to blow it up and okay, there we go. All right, so we received 5 out of 5 responses from the board members, which that was, majority, so I was fine with that. So this is your self-evaluation. Through your self-evaluation, we spoke about what are the strengths of the board's governance structure. So you guys have stated professionalism, your goal-oriented working relationship with the board representative and also the board members, the educational background of the board members. You have an adequate number of members, good attendance and participation. Your meetings are efficient. The information on reports, budgets, testing data is carefully reviewed, clarified, and discussed. And all necessary information is provided through leadership, directors, and the support to be a fully effective functioning board. Also, board areas of governance structure that need improvement. Process to train board members for serving in the office of president and vice president. The restrictions imposed because of COVID policies have made adjustments to our complete interactions with PEAK and the board. And of course, we'll be able to speak a little bit about that moving forward. Also, we need to appoint a president and do not have anything at this time. So board oversight, has the board assessed the information provided by NHA as far as budgets are concerned, academic, school improvement plan, accountability goals, grants, and federal programs? It was 100% across the board. What is the knowledge, the board's knowledge and understanding of the charter, contract, services agreement, and lease? Board members have a working knowledge of the documents. However, there's a need to possibly review annually. Also, we rely on our board members along with the coordinator and board representative to retrieve answers if there are any questions about any of the above mentioned areas. Also, reading the information on the portal regarding to the contract, agreement, and lease. And the board, I think the board members and lawyer have a good understanding, and understanding is clear. So you guys are good as far as that's concerned as well. How well are board members preparing for each meeting as far as reading materials before the meeting, communicating with each other as appropriate, and being prepared to act on motions versus tabling items. So across the board, you guys are 100% that you feel that you are prepared for these activities during a board meeting. What is the quality of the board meeting quorum? 100%. Do meetings start on time? 100% yes. What is the average length of time for board meetings? Less than 2 hours. How effective and efficient are the meetings? So you guys scaled at the higher end that you do have effective and efficient meetings. Then we spoke about board relationships and stakeholders. What is the quality of the board's relationship with the school administration? Again, you scaled on the high end that you have a high quality relationship with school administration and staff. What is the quality of the board's relationship with the school parents? So this one was a little more across the board to where you scaled with the not really, neutral, and then high. So that may be something that we can kind of tap into later to see kind of where you guys would want this relationship with the school parents or where you envision it. Also, what is the quality of the board's relationship with the community leaders and program staff? You went from neutral to high in this area as well. And tell me if I'm scrolling too fast, I will slow down. What is the quality of the board's relationship with the board attorney and auditor? Again, you scored on the high end. So that concludes the board self-evaluation. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I will only comment that going forward, I think as a team, we need to stress that we need to get 100% response rate. And that's just an observation, not a critique. But looking at the responses, if we had 3 additional responses and they were all in the lower range on some of those survey questions, it could dramatically change the output, right? You know, if you've got if you've got 3 that are highly rated out of 5 and 3 that were rated out of 1, not saying it would happen, but it's a possibility. Just want to encourage everyone to participate in the surveys each year. So just a comment, not a critique.
So we'll swiftly move through the evaluation of NHA as well, and I'll share my screen again. And like I said, let me know if I'm going too fast. All right, there we go. All right, so in this instance, we spoke about academic performance first. So how is NHA doing with regard to the implementation of the educational program as outlined in the charter? The board chose highly effective and exemplary in this area. So you had 3 at highly effective and 2 at exemplary. How is NHA providing the board with the school's progress toward meeting its charter goals? Is NHA providing? I'm sorry, 100% across the board said yes. How is NHA doing with regard to the presentation of and subsequent follow-up to the annual school improvement plan? We have 1 board member that said effective, and the other 4 that completed the survey said highly effective. I asked for any comments regarding academic performance. So a few comments were peak leads the way in academic performance. The school is performing well considering the impact of COVID over the last 2 years. The compiled data for testing is always available and disaggregated into subgroups, which shows a clear picture of student performance. The second part was organizational performance. Does NHA do well communicating school issues with our board? 60% of the board that completed the survey strongly agree. 20% were neutral and 20% agreed out of the 5 responses received. Is NHA's board representative available to answer questions and address concerns in an efficient and effective manner? 100% strongly agree. And your board representative thanks you for that. How is NHA doing with regard to the effective implementation of the policies the board has set? So 40% exemplary and 60% highly effective. How is NHA doing with regard to effective compliance and statutory and regulatory requirements? Again, it was 40% highly effective, 60% exemplary. Again, you had the opportunity to share comments under organizational performance. NHA's partnership is effective and outstanding. Great partner. NHA's board representative is to be commended for her efforts in keeping the board members informed. And we're fortunate to have the services of legal counsel for direction and interpretation of issues that arise. Then we spoke about financial performance. Is NHA providing the board with the financial data in a timely and understandable fashion? 100% yes. Is NHA providing the school with financial resources needed to fulfill its mission? 100% yes. Is NHA effectively monitoring the budget? 100% yes. Comments for financial performance. NHA provides timely and relevant financial data. Finances seem to be very strong, and then there was none at this time. All right, then we finish up with culture and climate. Is NHA school staff establishing relationships with students, parents, and school community? 40% said they do not know, and 60% said yes. So that may be another area that will be that may be beneficial to touch on in future meetings. Is NHA implementing the moral focus program as outlined in the charter? The answer is yes. Is NHA's code of conduct providing a positive learning environment? 100% yes. Is the school facility operating in a manner to support learning? 100% yes. Is NHA effectively managing school operations, safety, and security? 100% voted yes. Comments regarding culture and climate. Everyone wants to go to peak for all the positive and right reasons. The school's culture and climate are very supportive of the learning environments. The responses were based on limited involvement with the school due to COVID and being a new board member, but enjoyed visiting the school and found Peak's climate to be full of positive energy and engaged students. The board relies on Principal Pond to present the picture of the culture, faculty, learning environment of Peak. His reports are always thorough. Throughout the impacts COVID caused, he's done an outstanding job of keeping the board apprised of all aspects of the school, along with the support of NHA's representative. So that concludes both of your evaluations. So thank you guys very much for taking those, and look forward to touching on certain areas that you guys may be able to have a little bit more information or understanding. Any questions or comments? All right.
That sounded like it. Thank you, Kaditra, for running through that for us. Let's move on to item 5C in the interest of time, the revised audit letter of engagement. And Ms. Fresco, I know you're still with us, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, my screen was, never mind. Donna, going to lean into you on, and forgive me, this audit letter of engagement, I think there were 3 different areas that you had some
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
concern on.
Yeah, if you look at page 6 of 7 in the audit letter, there were several paragraphs previously, 21 and 22, that spoke to conditions of Plant Moran visiting the school for the audit. And there was a release for biological agent liability, that kind of stuff. And I just questioned, what the heck are you talking about? And everything. They readily removed those. So if you look at 6 and 7 now, there's been renumbering, and previously 21 and 22 having to do with those topics have been removed. I'm certainly satisfied with that. Didn't seem to be relevant. Certainly wasn't balanced if there needed to be any kind of releases and all that kind of good stuff. So that's been taken care of with removal. The other 2 items I still have concerns about. On page 3 of 7, you might recall that I pointed out that previously you had a paragraph 9, and I'm going to try to speak quickly and get us back on the same page about these items, but I'm hoping Kaditra might have some kind of a report for us. We had previously a paragraph 9 that spoke about the possibility of a group audit and communications associated with a group audit, and that the board was agreeing that such communications could occur. And the question was, what are you talking about? What's a group audit? Is there a group audit? What communications are you going to be releasing to somebody else about Peak and whatnot? And it was concerning to me that it looked like at first that they removed the paragraph, but lo and behold, they just put it in number 8. So I'm still questioning, what the heck is that? You'll see that we no longer have a paragraph 9 that refers to group audit, but that same content is now in the middle of paragraph 8. And I don't know if Kaditra, I didn't get any information from the auditor. I only got this modified document.
Right, I got the modified document as well. And that one got by me. I didn't see that they relocated that paragraph.
Yeah,
So
that was kind of slick.
Yeah, I will definitely follow up on that, but I do not have a response.
Okay, and additionally, I had indicated that the no indebtedness clause, which I think most of you are familiar with, is required by the charter school statute. It's supposed to be included in any contract the board enters into. It was not in here before. I still do not see that it was added unless I missed it.
I need to go back and look through it. But that was part of my changes as well, that clause needed to be included.
So my recommendation, Scott, is that NHA has a little bit more work. NHA and or Plant Moran has a little more work to do on the audit engagement.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Khadija, do you happen to remember, can you remind me of what our time frame is for signing off on engaging Plant Moran again this year? I don't recall a time
Well, with the
frame.
timing of services with this letter, if you look on page 10 of your packet, no, what page is that on the packet? I'm sorry.
Right,
10 of the PDF, it says this work is expected to begin in May of 2022. So that's like the
Are we
only
past
time
May?
frame, way past May. But that's the only time frame that I saw in the letter.
But if I can offer a little input, by law, your audit is due October 1st. Now I have to admit, I'm not the auditor. I don't do the financials. I would suggest there's time. I often hear that they don't begin in earnest until July because they're necessarily looking at your numbers at the end of your fiscal year, which doesn't end until June 30th. That would be my input on time frame and
Timeline.
right.
Okay. So good. So we do have time. My suggestion for today is that we, and Khadija, I know you've taken a note on this. I made a note for paragraph 8 of the agreement on page 3 of 7, so that we can expand on that and understand what the purpose of that statement is and or remove it. And Donna,
That's
it sounds like you're saying, I mean, they didn't balk at removing the other items. I think perhaps that sounds like that's going to be our approach. Is first, tell us what this is and what does this mean. Second, our preference is to remove it from the services agreement. Then we can move forward. Okay. All righty. Well, let's move on from our revised audit letter of engagement, which is close but no cigar just yet. So let's move on to our topic 22-23 board meeting location. Wanted to take just a few minutes and have a conversation with you guys. Kind of get a feel or a temperature on where the board is around moving back to in-person meetings with the start of the new school year in August. And it's hands off on this. I mean, you guys could, if you please speak your mind and be honest on what your real thought or temperature is on going back to meeting in person. There's pros and cons both ways, no doubt. You know, I certainly miss seeing you guys. But also understand, Julie and I just came off of a week and a half of really bad COVID. I just came off. The last 2 weeks have not been very pleasant. So I understand concerns. You guys speak up. What are your, in no particular order, what do you guys think? And Kenitra, you know what? I would, you know what? Actually, I'm going to just take a note on this. I'd like to hear something from every single board member. In either way, doesn't matter. And we have respect for the fact you may not want to meet in person. But is it time for us to return to that and or possibly a hybrid situation, which that's why we want to address it this month and get a feel from the board so that there's a piece of equipment that's used by other boards that are currently having both virtual and in-person combination meetings. And Steve, I forget what that thing is called. It's a device that we can use that if half of us wants to do in person.
I can't remember the name.
The owl.
Yes, owl.
We have an owl that we use in our Sunday school class.
Owl.
It has
There you
worked
go.
out great for
Thanks,
us.
Paula.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so who would like to speak up first? I don't want to spend too much time here, but basically looking to kind of get a thumbs up, thumbs down on what your current temperature is about returning to in-person meetings.
This is Diane.
Oh, sorry, Diane. I was going to say I'll kick it off and say
go
that
ahead.
I am pro returning to in-person meetings.
I agree.
I'm okay with returning. One thing though, obviously that this allows is for anyone who may not be at home. Virtual does allow you to still attend. And if there's ever any like need for a quorum and, you know, that would make a difference, we might want to consider that as you know, thinking about what to do in making a decision.
Yeah, good point. And Paula, you're right. One of the big pros is the ability to attend. You have no commute time. I live in Wake Forest. So obviously getting to Apex could take a little bit of time, but thank you, Barbara and Paula.
And I was
Diane, sorry.
I was going to say the same thing Paula just said. And also the fact that, you know, you have an option. And I prefer being in the school because I miss seeing everything going on. But I think that hybrid option
Alternative
is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Diane. I always prefer in-person interactions, but I'm more flexible, I realize, than some people are. So really either way is fine.
This is
Okay.
Dixie. I agree with Paula's comments about those who are still currently working. I feel that, you know, virtual attendance may be better for them, but I can make the adjustment to in person if that's the decision of the group.
All right, I think we've heard. Have we heard from everybody?
We have.
I believe so. All right, certainly appreciate that feedback. And I think in our month off in June,
July.
gosh, it's already June. In our month off in July, Steve, I'm going to probably reach out and work with you and Khaditra, and we'll look to obtain the OWL device and learn how to use that. I think based off of our conversation today, we can probably look forward to an August 2nd meeting as an in-person meeting, but with the option of doing it as a hybrid. For anyone who, you know, if we'd had this meeting inside the last 2 weeks, you guys definitely would not want to be meeting with me in person, you know, because I had the nasty COVID. All right, perfect. Thank you guys for that.
Now, before we move off of that, I just have one question. Steve, do you have a space available in the school that can accommodate the board? I know
I would move a teacher out of the classroom. I would need to just move a teacher and have them go float.
I know you had mentioned something earlier in the year. That's why I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we would move the art teacher out and have her go room to room because we don't have a common area that we could use during the day.
Steve, that's never, has that ever impacted? I mean, granted, it's been a couple years. Did that ever have any negative impacts to that individual teacher? I mean, because we normally met upstairs down at the end of the hallway.
That was actually an empty room. That was empty until 2019-20. And then we did use the art room for 2019-20 before we shut down. And she said she would be okay doing it again. We just gave her, you know, enough time so she knew what to prepare to go on a cart and take the cart to rooms. But I told her it would only really be 12 to 2 at most. So she was perfectly okay with that.
Okay, good deal. All right, thank you. Let's go ahead. I'm watching the clock closely. So let's move on to 5D. Oh, excuse me, 5E, the 22-23 Parent Student Handbook. Khaditra, did you have some words you wanted to share on that? We didn't really discuss that in great detail yesterday, other than the red line.
Well, I know one thing that I like to do is make sure that like Donna has the opportunity to review the handbook prior to the meeting. So Donna, do you have anything that you wanted to share with the board regarding the handbook?
Just a few brief comments. I know that
And if you reference the page, I'll go to the page.
well, I have mostly just general comments, just to encourage the board to look at the red line version, because the idea is that it's the same handbook you've had in the past, and some changes are being made. Sometimes they're not substantial and whatnot, but it concerned me just to make sure the board has full access to and has had the opportunity to review the red line versions, because that's what you're being asked to vote upon. And the red line obviously is a very efficient way for you to see and understand what the changes are. And it seems to me not a good use of time for you to have to read from the beginning and to the end and go back to the version from last year and all that kind of stuff. And Khaditra, if you'll forgive me, I also just want to say, I have some concern that the summary page does not actually reflect all the edits. I assume the summary page on page 19 of your board packet is intended to sort of hit the highlights perhaps. So again, given that you're obligated to actually vote, I would just alert you to try to flip through all of the red line items in the document, which I understand is on the portal, and know that there are actually more changes than those that are listed in that summary pages from what I saw. I have already provided feedback to Khaditra, and I had very few edits myself. Mostly it was some redlining that did not produce a complete grammatical sentence, but I think that's been looked at, and Khaditra can tell us about that.
Oh, that's still being in the works. The young lady who works on the handbook, she came back to the office today. So I'll get feedback from her. I'm anticipating probably later this afternoon.
Okay.
But she has been out of the office since I received the information. But did anyone have any questions? Now, the red line has been on the portal since May 27th for the board to be able to review. Now, one thing about it too is that pretty much the changes that you see here are, of course, just a general summary, like Donna was saying. And then I know that the principals were actually given the opportunity to only change to, I guess, give feedback on a few sections, which were the, of course, admin roster, honors and criteria, arrival and dismissal, meals, holiday celebration, lost and found, volunteer, and also the dress code. So just to kind of point that out as well. And Scott, I know you've mentioned a couple of times that I would share the handbook, but instead of going page by page, is it just, did anyone have any questions?
No, thank you. I think that's a much more time efficient approach. Do we have board? So rhetorical question, hopefully you have had time, or have you had time to go ahead and review this? I'm thinking our timeline will allow us to come back at the August 2nd meeting and have this approved ahead of the actual start of the school year. Does that meet our time constraints, Khaditra?
My only concern is the dress code. I just want to make sure that Steve can give his information out regarding the dress code in a timely fashion if there have been any modifications. So you can make sure that parents are aware of the dress code, Steve. And then Donna, when I looked at my email, like I know a few of the changes you had mentioned were like about like an incomplete sentence.
Right.
So that's very minor.
Right, I agree.
Okay. So it wasn't anything as far as like, I guess the bulk of the content is concerned, which those are the ones I try to pause on. If there's issues with content.
I apologize. I did not have any feedback on anything substantive.
So board, at your pleasure, it looks like it is in a space where if you choose to do so, that you could approve.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling, Khaditra. So that actually is the question then to the board. are you comfortable with moving forward as one of our action items in our next section, looking at and voting on the approval of the parent and student handbook as presented today? Or do you guys want to be afforded a second opportunity or an additional opportunity to read through the red line version and then bring this back as an action item for approval on August, I think it's 2nd?
It is.
Yeah. Which I think timeframe wise will still be okay. If not, somebody speak up. I think we'll be okay having that in play. I can't remember exactly when school starts. But we would have the handbook approved and in place ahead of I believe the actual start of the school year. So that's the question to your board. Do we want to keep this as an approval or an action item for approval today? Do you want to be afforded an additional opportunity to read through the red line version and bring back questions? Because if we have any significant questions, that could impact our approval timeline August 2nd ahead of school actually starting. Comments?
I read through the packet. I read through the whole packet, the whole student parent handbook. So the red line version is what I just read, but only changes are redlined. So is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So my other comment is, since Steve is the principal and that student parent handbook really comes from you, from the school, and you've read it, I guess I would ask for your input.
There are two minor things that I was actually sending an email back to Teresa, who sent us the draft of the handbook. One deals with excused versus unexcused absences. We continue to experience families that just say, I want to go to Disney for a week, I want to go on a cruise, but I want it to be excused since while I'm there, we're going to Epcot and we'll see the Italy pavilion. So we have very generous spring break, winter break, nice lengthy summer break, and it harms kids when they're not in school. So we have been and will continue to count those absences as unexcused. There's a North Carolina Department of Public Instruction attendance and accounting manual. And so what I've shared is that there's a section about family vacations and they can be excused and la-di-di, but I'm asking if they can take that chunk out, because the previous section is all about if you're sick, if you have a funeral, those kind of things, or absences excused by the principal. So that would all fall under there. But I felt like by including this whole section that's saying family vacations are okay, you just have to get the principal to sign off on. We get 2 or 3 a week anyway that are sometimes crazy. Or it's, I want to take a month off of school to go home to my home country, but I want my child to be able to keep their seat at peak, even though the other part says if you miss 10 days in a row, or 10 days you're truant, and 15 days you're unenrolled from school. So it does contradict quite a bit. So the family vacation section is one that I've emailed to ask about. It's on page 38. It says if absences are only excused if they're personal illness or injury, doctor or dental appointment, funerals, religious, or authorized absences approved by the principal. For the latter portion on page 39, there's a paragraph all about family vacations that I would love to strike and ask for your support in striking, because it just says parent planning to take their trip must notify the principal or secretary at least 2 weeks before. They will be excused if approved, but it does say they're discouraged and may be cause for withdrawal. But that paragraph continues to sabotage us because the office staff are overwhelmed with the number of, why we're trying to make a cruise into an excused absence, or why we're trying to, going to Epcot is the number one biggest one. We're traveling the world at Epcot, and it's going on theme park rides.
Steve, I have a quick question. So what did Teresa say regarding?
I sent it to her as we were talking, but I would like to get the board input. Actually, I didn't send yet. It's still in my drafts, but I would love to get the board input. If you can show that paragraph right there, family vacations, I would love your support in striking that whole thing, because on page 38, other absences authorized by the principal would cover that. And there's a manual from the state, and I can drop the link in the chat, that more deeply outlines the reasons for a lawful absence. You know, if you're quarantine, illness, injury, death in the family, medical, dental appointment. It also includes court or administrative proceedings, because unfortunately we have some children who have had to go to court for disputes between mom and dad. And of course we excuse those. 2 religious observance days a year, local board policy, absence related to deployment. That's one of the reasons we've gotten the Purple Star Award, for being supportive of military families in each of the last 2 years. Childcare, if there's an illness or medical appointment during care that the custodial parents then can't get their children to school, we excuse those things. So we use all of those, but having this family vacation stuff in there it's driving our office staff frankly crazy. And then our deans and I constantly have to engage in back and forth with parents about how going to the beach is a educational environment because there's fish in the ocean, and it's marine life and aquatic study. And we get essays about it. And it blows my mind that the time that's wasted both justifying it and arguing it, for us to say then, no, you have a beach house for the week. We understand unexcused absence, your child can do the work, but it's due the day they get back. They don't get an extra week to do the work because you went to the beach for a week. And so that's what I would love your partnership in striking that. And then I can email Teresa and say, at your discretion, we would like to remove the family vacation, because on 38, other absences approved by the principal are that category. But this one has been driving our staff and our parents crazy for 4 years, because it's the way it's written is that it's okay as long as they validate the reason. And
and
going to the beach is
highly
not
interpretive.
Yeah, it's not an educational experience because mom and dad own a house at Nag's Head and you're gone every 3 weeks for a week. And
I would also say that the way this is written, it puts a burden on the teacher.
absolutely.
Yes.
Thing with the assignment, then the teacher has to look ahead, prepare those assignments and so forth. Also, Steve, speaking to that situation with parents from foreign countries and all, my last school that I was at for, I guess, 10 years, we had a high population of students from foreign countries, and we had that same issue. And we were very tight with that 10-day, I think it was 10-day length of time. And it did make a difference in parents being more conscious about when they took those trips. And I know in your case with, and we were in a like cap school situation.
Yes.
That seat was a valuable commodity, so to speak, that they would lose if they so chose to go off for a period of time.
And I thank you for bringing that up, because we have the time between Thanksgiving break and winter break is one that we always get families that say, I know it's 17 days, but we're going to here and we're coming back or it's we're leaving December 20th, but we're not coming back until January 31st. And we have to sit parents down and say, no, your child will lose the seat. Then they pull out the handbook and say, no, this is a family vacation. And so we go back and forth and back and forth. So striking this section would be great, because I can already approve any of the vacations. And it's even more in depth because I've given parents the school attendance manual. And on page 14 and 15, it shares in great detail what things are allowed to be utilized. And I see chat is disabled. I can't drop the link in there. I'll have to email it to you. But it shares very detailed, in much more depth, the types of things that are legally allowed as a lawful absence. And that's what we call an excused absence. And so all the different essays about, we're going to California to visit the aunt and uncle, but while we're there, we'll make sure we walk them around so they can see the TV and motion picture industry. And it has nothing to do with curriculum, but we get 5-paragraph essays about how we're justifying taking 10 days off of school. So striking that, and we have families that do the same thing for spring break. And they'll say, okay, spring break next year is April 3rd through the 7th, but we're going to take 3 weeks off and come back the 25th. And it's a family vacation according to your handbook. And so we'd like to strike that whole thing and just let it be the previous
Thank
section.
you. I just have one question though, because I know all the principals had the opportunity to submit all of their information like early on. Was this an oversight for the family vacation section?
A lot of this, I was told that it's standard for every NHA handbook. So that's why I wanted to bring it up to you all. There are some things we were able to change, and I was told other things are standard boilerplate for the handbook at every school. This, I believe, is one of them. Much like the truancy above it and the family death below it. But I would ask for your support in helping us because we have such an international population, and we just have families who own beach houses or mountain cabins, and they want to take 2 weeks off at a time or 3 weeks off at a time, and we can't do it.
Hey, Scott, this is Donna. If I can comment briefly, Mr. Pond's comments certainly make a lot of sense to me, and I would just convey that having spent a good bit of time in the attendance manual that he's referring to, it makes sense to me that certainly the provisions of the State Board of Education attendance manual certainly cover this topic quite well. And if it's the board's desire, I would just say that from my perspective, it makes sense that the attendance manual provisions do indeed address this, and it would make sense maybe to remove that part from the handbook.
Yeah.
Following all this conversation, I'm going to say in the interest of time, because it's 17 after, we're going to run a little bit long today, but we need to get moving. I am in support of removing the family vacation section. Board, I'll ask it this way. Is anybody against removing that section?
No.
No.
All
Can
right.
you make your motion? I'm sorry, Scott. I was just going to help you guys out. So
Well,
make your motion. Do you just want to make the motion with the removal of the family vacation section?
Well, let's circle back to that question to the board. Do you feel like you need more time to review the red line version so that you can see all the changes in addition to the 4 bullet points that are on our cover sheet on page 19? Do we need more time? I believe we can move forward with going ahead and tabling this for now, getting it cleaned up in the month of June, June and July, and then bring this back in August and go ahead and approve it.
Much agreed.
All right, in that case then, let's move on. Khaditra, you have notes. There's no objection or disagreement with the removal of the family vacation piece. It does seem rather interpretive and possibly sometimes arbitrary to the point that it causes too much problems for our administration. So this is our goal, Khaditra, that we have that updated and that we come back in August with a final version of the parent-student handbook. And board, let's be prepared when we come back in August to go ahead and take action on this for the approval on August 2nd. So if there's not any objections with that, but I'll pause for a second. Any objections with that before we move forward? We've got a lot to get through.
No.
No, I don't have an objection, but would that, Khaditra, be within the time frame for NHA before they go into publishing all of this? And
Well, due to the fact that we don't print handbooks anymore, we put them
Their
online.
portal.
Yeah, it
Oh,
just
yeah.
makes it a lot easier. But when we
Digital.
went to print, we used to print in
Yeah.
July. Yeah.
okay.
And we also have parent meetings starting, new family meetings. We have an orientation for them on the 22nd. But as long as sometime in August, we could get an approval, I could email it out to all families in early mid-August. And that way it's before we start the school year. I can't remember off the top of my head what our August date is, but it could be approved there. And I can certainly email Teresa offline and share that we discussed this and would like it removed as part of the updated draft with your
And
blessing.
plus it's in conflict with your school improvement plan on attendance too.
Yes, it does greatly. And it could impact our goal, the board goal and the mission of having at least 93%. Because we've had discussion after discussion. Now that end of grade testing was done Thursday, we have families just said, we're done. we're taking the next 7 days off and we're leaving. And or families that already left and said, we're not taking end of grade tests because we looked it up and North Carolina said you can opt out. So we're leaving Memorial Day. And we have families that did that.
Too bad the real work world doesn't work that way. Nope. I'm just taking off. See you later.
Yeah.
All right. So, what it sounds like is, what we're going to do then is we will have the parent-student handbook, the final version, with the final, with this final change, and the board prepared for discussion items and then an action item at the August 2nd meeting. Our next item in discussion is item 5F. That is the third quarter financial statements. Michelle's not here today. I normally will ask her. I have gone through the third quarter financial statements. Nothing stood out to me as far as percentages and where we should be on year-to-date figures and such. I have no concerns, but want to make sure that the board has an opportunity to share any concerns that you might have about third quarter financial statements. Okay. Thank you all. All right. So item 5G, proof of residency, the audit compliance requirement. Khaditra, do you have a few minutes on that one?
I do. Pretty much as far as the proof of residency is concerned, the only thing that that we need is if anyone has moved within the last 12 months, we will just need your proof of residency, whether it's a driver's license, voter registration, or some type of public record that indicates where your address is. If you have not moved, the form that is within your packet, I can send that to you. It's on page 96 of the PDF or 94 of your packet. I can send that for you to sign, submit back to me, stating that your address has not changed. So
let's plan on that.
Okay. So I'll make sure that is emailed to everyone after this meeting, and I need it back by June 15th.
Beautiful. All right. Any questions on that, team? Expectation is email with a PDF of the form or the link to the form, and then we will execute those. And Khaditra, we can use our electronic signatures, or are we actually signing and scanning or returning a signed document that way?
Yeah, there's no requirement on how the signature has to be submitted. So you can submit it to me either way. As far as electronic signature is concerned, Scott, we only have yours.
Oh.
Yeah, we don't have the full board's electronic signature.
Well, I think Diane needs to start signing everything going forward. All right, so we know what the expectation is there. Each one of us as a board member will need to execute that form for Khaditra. And if we can do that, I'm going to say electronically, or even using, like Microsoft Word or something to insert a signature. Khaditra, you're saying that's okay?
Yeah. Once we start meeting in person, these will be a lot easier. I'll just pass them out.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's move on to item 5H. That is the luncheon. Barbara, you want to speak to that real quick?
Yes, please. Thank you. We usually have a luncheon for the staff and teachers at the end of the year. And Steve, if you will remind me of the date, please, was it the 13th or the 16th?
We can do the 13th, or we can actually do the 14th as well, whatever you would like.
Okay. Well, one of those days. And I would like the allocation of the funds to do that luncheon.
So the board needs to approve the funds, or have they already been approved?
I don't think they've been approved, have they, Steve?
Okay.
No.
I mean, Scott.
I know we talked about it last month.
Okay.
I remember saying $1,000 somewhere.
That's what's popping into my head. It was $1,000.
That was for the 1,000. Okay. I think we
that was for the other.
The last luncheon, yeah.
I thought I saw where 1,000 and then 2,500 was approved for something.
And that was out of the board funds that I was using for support of the teachers for their gift for Teacher Appreciation Week and a meal for them as well.
So can we get approval for 1,000?
And you can
Is
make
that
that
the
motion
budget?
right now. You
Yeah,
don't
is
have
that
to
a
wait.
budget? Is that a budget that we're going to need, Barbara? Does that sound right?
Yeah, in that ballpark, yeah.
Okay, well, let's have a motion in a second.
I move that we spend, give Barbara $1,000 for the end of year staff luncheon.
This is Cheryl. I second it.
Khaditra?
All right. Paula,
Yes, but I do see in the minutes from our last board meeting where it says a motion was made by Dixie, seconded by Nicholas to approve the expenditure of board funds not to exceed the amount of 2,500 for the cost of the 2022 staff appreciation as submitted. So,
We certainly wouldn't use 2,500. I thought it was the 1,000 that we had talked about, but it may
but
just.
this says not to exceed the amount.
Okay, sure.
I mean, I don't know if this is talking about the
was
same.
that for something else?
Yeah.
I thought that was what Steve was describing with various staff appreciation.
Yes, we
Yeah.
had staff
Right.
appreciation gifts and we had
Oh,
got them.
okay. All right,
We had
it's
got them a
not, it,
backpack. It's
That
here.
needs to be changed.
okay.
We
It
bought
just,
them lunch
it
and
doesn't
talked
say,
about
just staff appreciation. It doesn't say, okay, sorry, yes. Back on
All right,
track.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Dixie,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
All right, $1,000 has been approved.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you.
Due to time constraints today, we are going to skip over closed session. We need to move into action items because I'm going to run short on time and I do not want to leave this pending with you guys as the board, as I think I had to in the last meeting. So we're going to move on to section 6, action items. The first one is 6A, the approval of the May 3rd, 22 board meeting minutes that we were just kind of discussing. I could not recall, and I didn't make any changes. Donna or others, does anyone have any changes to the meeting minutes from May 3rd before
I
we
do.
look to approve those?
Yeah, when I looked at it, I saw that the location is at the school when it shouldn't be at the school. It should have said at remote.
And does it need to be indicated that it says Scott started the meeting, but does it need to be stated that Paula concluded that particular meeting, or you don't need to do that?
I've never done that before.
Okay, I was just wondering
Yeah.
because we seem to be so specific and everything.
Yeah. No, we just need to make sure that the proper location of where the meeting took place is indicated,
Okay.
and it should say at remote. I know typically Donna's like, take the link off. So the link is off, but the location is wrong. So that's what I noticed.
Scott,
Well,
I just
but
had, I just
oh,
had
sorry.
two comments. One of them was what Khaditra just described. And Khaditra, of course, as required by the open meetings law, we have the language under right before number 1 call to order that it was done via Zoom. So
That's,
we want that consistent. So you're right, the top part needs to reflect remote meeting. The other comment that I had is on page 5 of 6, the very first item at the top, D, where you approved the procurement plan. You might recall this language says it was approved as submitted, but it was actually approved with the addition of the board's conflict of interest policy as attachment A.
Yeah.
Because we pointed out that the attachment that was in the document submitted was not actually the board's conflict of interest policy.
Thank you, Donna.
okay, any further updates or corrections for our May 3rd meeting minutes? Khaditra, have you got everything?
I sure do.
Okay, can we have a motion to approve our board meeting minutes as amended?
This is Cheryl. I so move.
Thank you, Cheryl. Second,
Diane, I second it.
Thank you, Diane. Khaditra?
Paula,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Dixie,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
And just
All right.
for, I guess for purposes of saving time and then me having to do a roll call each time, do you guys just want to go through everything and then just vote one time for the remainder of your action items?
If that is an acceptable approach, I think that probably would be wise. So we have 6B, the reconfirmation of the face coverings policy. We are tabling 6C. We are tabling 6D. We have moved 6E to our August 2nd meeting, and we have our plan there. The last two things we have on the action items are the 22-23 grants budget and the 22-23 prayer certification and single set of assurances.
We can talk about those really quickly.
Let's do that, because I don't want to see us voting on things that we have not discussed.
Right. Steve, did you want to touch on the PD and instructional subscriptions for the grants budget?
Yes, the professional development in general is going to be used to go to the Innovative School Summit, where we've been asked to present about our unique instructional model here, the differentiation and the tiered instruction. So we're bringing a team of 12 for the professional development, and then we'll come back here in August, and we're going to be, there's 4 conferences within one, so 3 of us are going to attend each conference, so we can come back and bring that knowledge and skill to our staff by presenting it to our faculty and staff when we're here. So making, not only going and sharing knowledge, but bringing it back and making it part of our daily practice.
Board, any questions?
No.
Subscriptions. And I don't have any questions either. So in a motion, we would need to cover reconfirmation or no change to our existing face covering policy, and motion for approval of the grants budget and the related and supporting prayer certification and single set of assurances that goes along with that.
Scott, I have a question or comment about the last one.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So the approval is pretty standard, and you see the statutory reference. I would just point out that there is some cut and paste errors, so that if you look at the certification sentence and the assurances sentence, it's not actually a complete sentence. There's a section of the statute that were left out. And I don't know if you need to spend any more time on it, except perhaps to approve it with edits to reflect the actual statutory language. So like certification says, as a condition of receiving funds under the Act, we hereby certify in writing to the state educational agency prevents. It's supposed to say state educational agency that no policy of the local educational agency prevents or otherwise denies. Do you see what I mean?
I do. Now, the printed copy of the documents I received has that verbiage.
Excellent. The one that's in the packet is missing verbiage, both under certification and under assurances, but I've reviewed the statute, and it's just a matter of making sure that the correct statutory language, complete statutory language, is in there.
So what Khaditra's displaying right now, educational agency that no policy of the local educational agency prevents.
That's correct.
So section 8524 is correct. How about the assurances?
8306 similar. The document that's in my printed packet is missing some language, but I see it on the screen. It's the shall have on file with the state educational agency.
Okay, so what you're seeing then we're good with.
Correct.
You just may have a slightly out of date or non-corrected version. Okay. So we good there, Donna? It feels like we're good there. Okay. So board, can we get a motion then for Oh, gosh.
Approval of action items 6B as in boy, 6F as in Frank, and 6G as in girl.
Thank you.
This is Paula, so moved.
Thank you, Paula. Second.
This is Cheryl, a second.
Thank you, Cheryl. One time, Kaditra, one time around the
All
block.
right. Paula,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Dixie,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
and Scott.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, so quickly to close out here, we have number 7. That's our new business, our next agenda item. Does anyone have, other than the items we've already discussed and made notation on, that will go into our August section, August 2nd agenda? Does anyone have any additional items they'd like to bring forth at this time?
I just have one clarification. I know that the meeting in August may possibly be hybrid, and we had briefly spoken about the owl. And Scott, you had mentioned that you would get with Steve and I in July and kind of talk through that. But Steve, do you have an owl device at the school, or would the board
We
be
do not.
purchasing an owl device for the use of board meetings? 'Cause
Yes,
if
we
so-
don't have one.
Okay, so if so, we would have to approve those funds in August. So therefore, it wouldn't be available in August. So I just wanted to clarify that.
You mean NHA doesn't have an extra owl?
Mm-mm.
I have never seen one here. I know I've seen them at the service center in Michigan. I'm looking right now on the web to see what.
And the
even
only way I know about them is because one of my boards in Charlotte actually purchased one for their meeting, and that's what I was sharing with Scott and Steve on our pre-call.
Well, we got
So-
ours. It's been about a year. It was about $1,000 then.
Yeah.
It could
It
have
is,
gone.
it's $1,000 for the owl meeting owl 3, $1,000 plus tax.
Shouldn't NHA have to pay for that to fulfill their responsibilities to oversee your meetings?
No, because that's no.
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 I'm gonna stay out of this one.
Because
So-
we had the roll call line, we had various other options, the Zoom, they pay for that. So there were other options.
I know another EMO who has owls at all their schools.
That's great.
It is.
Get on it,
So-
Donna.
So I guess we're gonna put off any debate over the
Owl purchase.
the morality of providing an owl or not. We certainly have plenty of board funds. Steve, I will work with you and Kaditra so we can look into this. I'll do some research on it. And what we'll end up doing is that if we see that we need to be prepared with this for the August 2nd meeting, because keep in mind, if we come back to an in-person meeting on August 2nd and we have 1 or 2 team members that for some reason cannot attend in person or need to do virtual, then we'll either address that for the August meeting and how we're going to coordinate that, or we will look to have a very brief board meeting for a single purpose of allotment of our board funds to go ahead and make this purchase. We can purchase it as the board. It will be, I guess, technically owned by the board, and it will be there and available for the use as Steve sees fit as our school administrator.
Scott, you also, under the law, always have the option of telephone. For example, if it were just 1 or 2
Well,
board members,
I was gonna-
members were okay with that.
That's,
I can still use Zoom or Google Meet as well.
And I guess NHA is still paying the phone bills, right? Sorry, I couldn't resist. Sorry.
So we could still use Zoom or Google Meet as well for that August
right,
meeting. I can make
to
sure
pull that,
that-
yeah, to
yeah.
pull that all together.
Yeah.
That's why I'm thinking, I think we can be prepared with the OWL system for August. If not, it doesn't,
we'll make it work.
yeah, it doesn't curtail us from being able to hold the meeting and make it work and have everybody attend in the form and fashion that they want. I don't believe we have any public comment or visitors today. So with that, we would move on to adjournment. And can I have a motion from the floor, please, for
Motion to
adjournment?
adjourn.
Thank you, Barbara.
Second,
Who made the
I
second? I'm
heard a
sorry.
s-
Cheryl.
Okay.
Cheryl.
All right, I'll do a quick roll call. Paula,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Dixie,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes,
All right, meeting adjourned at 1:40.
really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for your service and your servants' hearts. Thank you, Steve, for all your hard work and all your great successes. You make it easy to be a board working
Thank
with
you all
such a
for your
great team.
support. Makes
And
it
thank
easy
you.
for me. Thanks for your
Thank you.
leadership, Scott.
And congratulations on another great year, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Enjoy your summer.
Fantastic.
All right, bye-bye, everyone.